I still hear the sirens before I remember her name. Red and blue lights bled across the windshield as I turned the corner. The street was sealed off. Black SUVs, tactical vests, yellow tape snapping in the wind like a warning meant just for me. I parked crooked, didn't even kill the engine. An agent stepped in front of my car, palm raised. "Sir, you can't go in there." "My daughter is inside," I said. Not loud, controlled. The way you speak when panic is chewing through your ribs and you refuse to let it show. His face changed. Not fear, recognition. "We know," he said quietly. "That's why we're here." The world narrowed to a single sound, my heartbeat slamming against my skull. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Your wife's mother. It's been 12 years. When you see what we found inside, you'll understand why your daughter never wanted to leave." Then the first gunshot cracked through the house. People think betrayal is loud, explosive. They imagine shouting, slammed doors, accusations that echo. They're wrong. Betrayal is quiet. It's years of silence carefully curated. It's smiles that never reach the eyes. It's a child flinching when you suggest visiting grandma and saying, "I'm fine here," a little too fast. I met Margaret when I was 26. She was polished, sharp, respected. The kind of woman who shook your hand like she was already measuring your worth. "She's strong," my wife Claire said back then. "She raised me alone." I believed that explained everything. The control, the rules, the way Margaret never asked, only informed. When Claire died, that control sharpened into something else. Grief has a way of creating opportunities for monsters. Claire's funeral blurred into a gray smear of hands and condolences. I remember Margaret standing straight as a blade, not a tear out of place. "She should stay with me for a while," she said afterward, meaning my daughter. "You need time." It wasn't a question. I said no. She smiled, tight, patient. "She needs stability." What she meant was obedience. I didn't know then that the paperwork had already been filed. Emergency guardianship, signed medical affidavits, old family court connections dusted off and ready. By the time I realized what was happening, my daughter was already sleeping in Margaret's house. "She wants to be here," Margaret said when I protested. "Don't traumatize her further." I let myself be convinced that cooperation was love. That was my first failure. 12 years is a long time to ignore your instincts, but it's amazing what you can rationalize when the alternative feels unthinkable. My daughter grew quieter, smarter, watchful. She learned early how to say nothing and mean everything. "She's just shy," Margaret would say. "She's disciplined," the teachers said. "She's fine," the therapists, hand-picked by Margaret, reported. But every time I picked her up, she hugged me like she was counting seconds. Every time I dropped her off, her fingers tightened around my sleeve. "Do you want to come home?" I asked her once, gently. She shook her head, too fast. "I'm okay, Dad." Her eyes said something else. I didn't understand the language yet. The first real crack appeared in a drawing. Stick figures, a house, locked doors, a small figure in the corner with no mouth. I asked her about it. She tore it up and apologized. That night, I started keeping notes, dates, reactions, patterns. I noticed how Margaret controlled access, phones monitored, visits supervised, gifts inspected, letters lost. I noticed how my daughter stiffened when footsteps approached. I noticed the cameras. Margaret said they were for security. There were too many, and they all pointed inward. I didn't confront Margaret. That's what she expected. Instead, I planned, quietly, methodically, patiently. I hired a private investigator under an alias, former federal, the kind who asks why before how. I hired a forensic accountant, not because of money, but because control leaves paper trails. I installed my own protections, legal contingencies, trusts, custodial reversals triggered by specific evidence thresholds. I stopped arguing and started listening. Margaret grew comfortable again. That was my second mistake corrected. The evidence came slowly. A sealed room in the basement that didn't appear on blueprints, medical supplies inconsistent with any known condition, encrypted hard drives hidden behind HVAC panels, old tapes labeled with dates, names. I watched one. Once. I didn't sleep for 3 days. When I was done shaking, I made a call I'd been avoiding, the FBI. Not a tip, not an accusation, a delivery. By the time they moved, they already knew everything. They just needed the final piece, my daughter. The agent beside me was talking again, but I barely heard him. "There are still individuals inside," he said. "We believe your mother-in-law is armed." Another gunshot. Closer. I stepped forward. He grabbed my arm. "Sir." "That's my child," I said, "and I am done asking permission." He looked at my face, then he let go. The house erupted in sound. Orders shouted, glass breaking, smoke rolling through the open windows. I stood frozen, watching my past collapse in real time. Margaret had built a fortress out of respectability, awards, charity boards, smiles. Inside, she kept secrets like trophies, the kind of secrets that rot you from the inside out. The gunshots stopped. Minutes later, they carried my daughter out, wrapped in a blanket. She was trembling, alive. When she saw me, she broke. So did I. Margaret didn't make it out. Officially, she resisted arrest. Unofficially, the truth is simpler. Predators don't surrender when the light turns on. The trials lasted years. The tapes, the evidence, the testimonies from others who had been too afraid to speak. Margaret's network unraveled. Judges retired early. Doctors lost licenses. Therapists vanished from practice. No conspiracy survives daylight. I testified once, briefly. I didn't need revenge. Justice did the work for me. My daughter sleeps peacefully now. She laughs, loudly. She argues. She lives. Sometimes she still checks the locks. I don't stop her. Healing isn't linear. It's earned. People ask how I stayed calm, how I didn't lose myself. The truth? I did. I just rebuilt someone stronger, someone who understands that silence can be a weapon, that patience is not weakness, that monsters rely on disbelief, and that the most dangerous revenge isn't rage, it's preparation. I still hear the sirens sometimes, but now they sound like freedom. And when I pick up my daughter, she never hesitates to leave.